Welcome to the Hardpire. This is the second bonus episode following Logan and Finn as they gather more information in Hrevim's palace while away from the rest of the group.
Let's find our perfect victims.
Logan winked at Finn before turning his attention back to the crowd in the palace's inner court. Most eyes were still lingering on the entrance at the back that the woman with the steadfast stride had disappeared behind. Logan leisurely strolled through the crowd, Finn only a step behind, and faked an interest in the vegetation while he observed the people surrounding him from the corner of his eye. It took him longer to locate a suitable group to infiltrate than usual, as the healer's tincture was wearing off much faster than anticipated. The heat around his wound spread out over his stomach, and his mouth started to dry out. Breathing became difficult, and he wished he could simply settle down on one of the benches in the garden and enjoy the nice weather with Finn, but he couldn't let the opportunity the stranger had given him slip through his fingers. The majority of the crowd quickly lost interest in what had just transpired. The incident hadn't been all that interesting in and of itself after all, but Logan was searching for those who wouldn't let such a provocative display go uncommented. And he didn't have to look for too long. 3 people to their right, 1 man and 2 women, all dressed in impeccable clothing with fabric imported from faraway places, spoke in hushed voices as their eyes darted back and forth to the back door. Logan discreetly signaled for Finn to follow him, then drifted closer to the group without ever looking at them directly.
She's already walking around like she owns the place. We're not even married yet.
The first woman, a tall, stout person with tan skin and a halo of dark curls, looked at the door with such disdain that it almost made Logan stop in his tracks.
Did you hear what they have planned for the wedding?
I've heard they're planning to import Kalana flowers from Manakala. The orange ones.
The second woman, with a much slimmer build and high cheekbones, but clearly related to the other woman, rolled her eyes as if using the wrong flowers at the wedding was the greatest transgression one could commit. Logan knew that this was the perfect group to infiltrate. If he wanted to learn anything about what was going on at the palace and the rest of the province, these people would be able to tell him all. He just wasn't sure how trustworthy the information would be.
Orange Kalanas? From Manakala? At this time of year?
Logan approached them with the utmost shock on his face. The third person of the group, a man with 1 missing ear and skin much lighter than the women's, gave Logan a startled look before stepping aside to let him join the group.
Oh, absolutely. Doesn't it sound like they think themselves more exceptional than nature? They surely must be aware that the flowers will wilt before they ever reach the city, right?
Well, I've heard that this wedding isn't truly being organized by Viscount Silac anyway. That it's all his second husband's idea. That his newest husband is just a plaything to keep him occupied, since the Viscount and the first husband barely talk to him. The Viscount probably doesn't even care about this youngling. Certainly not as much as his mother thinks he does. He's never even cared about Kyrick in all these years they've been married either. But both of those marriages are just political alliances, nothing more.
Most noble weddings are political alliances. The group turned to Finn, having noticed him for the first time, and he instantly froze like a cat caught stealing fish. The woman with the high cheekbones looked him up and down and seemingly deemed him worthy of address.
Not with his first husband, but you're probably much too young to remember that wedding. Oh, bless the stars, what a marvel it was. The hills outside the city bloomed like they hadn't bloomed in 100 years on that day. Fate truly blessed their union. There was no such sign for Kyrick's wedding, and there certainly won't be one for this one either.
They'll try to imitate it again like they tried last time, but it'll fall flat once more. People aren't blind. It's so plain to see that Sarkit barely cares about his new marriages.
Truly. And still his mother struts around like she'll get invited to the royal council at any moment. Her son is just a toy of a toy. I doubt the Viscount even remembers his name. I'm fairly certain Viscount Sarkit's first wedding to Yormek Hanimid was also politically motivated. The group turned back to Finn, their laughter dying down as their arrogance on their face shifted to confusion and annoyance. Logan had to save Finn before he'd get them kicked out of the group with his attempt to stay logical, and, quite frankly, he was tired of hearing these people pass unfounded judgment on someone else's relationships. He was sure if he dug deep enough, he could find plenty to criticize about their own relationships. He probably wouldn't even have to dig all that deep.
They probably didn't have to import Kalanas for the first wedding to make it spectacular.
Absolutely not. They didn't need to lure guests in with such nonsense. The flowers are just a distraction from the catastrophe that is this union.
And we have perfectly fine regional flowers in Beidan. Those wouldn't wilt before the weddings even had a chance to start. Like the red micans. They're wonderful flowers. Why can't they just have some of those?
And they'd fit regional wedding customs. Logan shot a quick smile at Finn, relieved he seemed to finally comprehend how to butter these people up, before turning back to the rest of the group with a grand display of exasperation.
Exactly. Beidan has its own wonderful traditions. Why try to imitate the North? Here. The South has already lost so much since the unification. There's no reason to try to make the entire kingdom alike.
I'm certainly not one to constantly insist on traditions, and our kingdom is truly a wonderful place. But it is sad to see such beautiful customs disappear.
The first wedding was according to our traditions. I don't see why they have to change things now.
And you think Carrick is in charge of the planning of the wedding?
I'm sure of it. Zarkit would never organize such a pompous feast and disregard Beidan's venerated customs. The longer Carrick is at court, the more he tries to mold it to his own will.
Not to speak ill of our neighbors, but they've always tried to imitate the North.
Well, they barely have any culture of their own. Just a bunch of fishers and old documents.
From the corner of his eye, Logan saw Finn's expression shift ever so slightly. The veins at the base of his jaw started to pulse with his heartbeat. His eyebrows drew together just a fraction, and even though, from far away, his expression would still be read as neutral, Logan knew that the thoughts currently swirling through Finn's mind were anything but. Logan counted himself lucky that the three nobles found each other and their chatter too important to pay Finn any heed, or they might have noticed his disagreement written plainly all over his body. He needed to somehow stir the conversation towards something actually beneficial to them, or they would lose their entire day listening to the absurd opinions of bored nobles who had never had any purpose in life.
Well, I wouldn't say that the entire province has no value. The military academy is quite important, wouldn't you agree? It has produced its fair share of great people after all. I seem to recall that the Viscount himself attended the academy in his younger years. I do truly admire anyone who vows their lives to protect the rest of us.
As much as it pained him to say these words, he knew that it was the right path to travel on if he wanted to find out if these people knew anything about Silac.
Oh yes, absolutely. We all do, of course.
But it isn't what it used to be either. Not since that Zavarek family took over.
My nephew is currently serving at the academy. We are shocked by how much has changed since my father attended. They don't teach any discipline anymore.
Carrick Sitek is distant family with the Zavareks. The group's attention snapped right back to Finn, as if he'd suddenly appeared out of thin air next to them. Oh, is that so?
Yes, now that you mention it. I seem to recall having heard something similar a while back.
Captain Silac too, if I recall correctly.
Who's Captain Silac?
That new captain of the guard in Hollowtooth. Dreadful man. Last year we arrived late for tide bringings, and he made us drive through the Fishers district to get to our lodgings, instead of escorting us through the main road. Unbelievable. But they're not celebrating tide bringings correctly in that city anyway. I don't think I'll ever go back for it. Especially not if that man is still captain.
I truly don't understand how these people keep weaseling their way into such important positions when they have no qualifications for them. Wasn't Lisek slated to be captain? What happened to him? He was perfectly capable of taking over the job, and he always looked after us and our needs when we went to Hollowtooth. I'm sure the Zavareks forced one of their pawns into yet another position. Soon they'll try to get control of the entire region. They've already got their pawn in Beidan. Who knows how many more they've got in Napachet. Logan let the conversation flow as the three nobles found new subjects to complain about. His eyes were glazing over from the discomfort in his body. He truly wished he could sit down and rest his head, preferably even take a very long nap. But he couldn't let the others know how he felt. He had to play the part. They still needed to find their way into the palace. He interjected some platitudes into the conversation here and there, some agreements to please the nobles, but didn't try to steer the conversation towards anything useful anymore. Finn had gone completely silent, and Logan knew that the time had come for them to move on. His head suddenly whipped up as if he'd seen something, and then he waved at a person that wasn't actually there.
Oh, excuse us. I've just spotted my cousin. It was truly a pleasure to meet you all. I'm sure we'll see each other again one of these days.
At the latest at the wedding, I suppose.
Of course. I wouldn't want to miss the blunder those wilted flowers will be.
Oh, it will be such a horrendous sight. Logan gently grabbed Finn's wrist and led him towards the other end of the court, as if they were going to meet up with someone near the back. He made sure there were plenty of people between them and the three nobles before he stopped.
Oh my stars, those people were awful. I don't think I could have survived another minute listening to their blabbering. Have I ever told you the names you people have are ridiculous? With your eggs and ids and ranks embedded in the names. I'm so glad you're not using your full name. I don't think I could bear calling you something like that. Finnick or Finnemade or, dare I say, Finnohick. Absolutely horrendous. Everything alright with you?
Yeah, sure. What now?
Well, I suppose we try to get inside the palace.
How?
Brilliant question from a brilliant mind. How about like this?
Logan grabbed Finn's wrist and pulled him along as he joined a group of young men who were confidently striding towards the back entrance. They stayed a few steps behind the men and only caught up as they neared the door. Logan's heart was hammering wildly in his chest, but the rush of excitement felt amazing, waking up every bone in his body, his vision sharp as ever. As they passed the guards, he even dared smile at the one to his right and bow his head in greeting. He slowed down again when they were inside the palace and led Finn down the first side corridor they came across.
I'm happy that worked out. That could have gone so wrong.
You are truly addicted to bad ideas.
I know, but my bad ideas always deliver results. How would you have gotten us in?
Not nearly as quickly.
Exactly. What a rush. At least we're awake now.
Sure. Logan looked around, unable to contain the big smile spreading over his face. The hallways of the palace weren't nearly as busy as the courtyard had been, especially not the side corridor they had fled into.
I think all the action's happening upstairs on the balconies.
Looks like it. They walked out at their hiding spot and up the stairs, as if they'd gotten the Viscount's personal permission to be there. The palace's decor was kept quite simple, even though the lower half of the walls were decorated with an intricate mosaic of blue and green tiles. The upper walls were plain white, with no paintings or other art adorning any of the hallways. Logan was a bit astonished that none of the palace had been decorated for tight bringings, considering how colorful the court and the surrounding balconies had been. As Logan had predicted, the second floor held many more people, although they all looked much busier than the ones in the courtyard.
Alright, now to find a new target. Won't be as easy as infiltrating that horrible group in the garden, though. We probably need to listen in on what people are talking about for a while. Not the quickest method, but we don't know yet what we're working with. Maybe you'll recognize someone who could be useful to us.
He glanced back at Finn, but Finn wasn't paying him any attention. He had his gaze to the ground, eyebrows drawn together, as he automatically followed Logan through the hallways.
Finn, if the people are getting too much for you, we can also just leave, you know.
No. We might still be able to find out more.
Okay.
I'm just thinking. The one lady mentioned that Silac was slated to become the captain before Silac took over. I hadn't really thought about that until now. I remember most people were confused that Silac got the position instead, but they just dismissed it at the time, thinking it was probably just some internal politics that got Silac the spot, but do you think he could have already influenced people back then? Logan guided Finn onto an empty balcony with light touch and looked out over the crowd in the courtyard below as he considered Finn's comments.
That's a really good question, actually. When did he get the position?
About 2 or 3 years ago.
That's not that long. I don't think we can rule it out. Maybe he's had the ability for a while now. What makes sense that he didn't just suddenly acquire it as we ran into him. I didn't really consider how long he must have been influencing people to get what he wants.
It also means he has been working with the Crow for that long. Or even longer.
If they actually are the source of his ability.
Where else would they come from?
I don't know. Maybe from something we know nothing about, and the Crow is just working with him because of his ability, without being the source of it.
That could also be a possibility, yes. 2 years ago was also when the fire in Miller's knee happened.
Yeah. Do you think it's related?
Who knows? We don't have nearly enough information to draw conclusions.
If Silac is related to the Zavarek family and the Viscount's second husband, do you think they're all working with the Crow?
I hope not.
Wouldn't that be terrific? If a group of fanatics who are trying to revive the old gods had infiltrated every aspect of the kingdom's regime.
Yes, truly terrific. Next you'll tell me that all the members of the Royal Council are just puppets to be sacrificed to bring back Tavomoda.
Well, I think you can guess my stance on our dear Royal Council.
I do think they're doing a better job at governing the kingdom than a god angry because we woke him from his slumber.
Hey, who knows? Maybe Tavomoda would be a peaceful tyrant who lifts everyone out of poverty.
And connects all the provinces to the railway system.
As long as he's doing it without exploiting his workers, he'll do a much better job than the council's doing.
The council isn't even the one overlooking the construction of the train system.
Yeah, I know. But they are the ones turning a blind eye to the situation.
A strange machine appeared at the entrance of the inner court, and instantly the crowd quieted down. Large mechanical legs protruded from a comfortable seat on which an older man sat. They advanced slowly, like the legs of a spider. A slim pipe behind the seat exhaled a plume of smoke high above the man's head. He looked serious, unsmiling, as he maneuvered his way through the parting crowd. With his left hand, he steered the moving chair across the inner court, although Logan couldn't quite see how the mechanism worked.
The Lord of the Castle.
Logan leaned forward, placing his elbow against the stone banister. Viscount Silac had grown somber in his older years, to the point where some people might call him unpleasant. He'd garnered a reputation for liking feasts and festivities held in his palace, but Logan doubted that was still the case. He barely greeted or even regarded the people surrounding him in his inner court, and didn't exchange any words with the ones accompanying him.
I'm astonished he didn't also put those ridiculous ribbons all over his chair to match the occasion. Although, I'm sure all of this decorating is more the fault of one of the husbands than his own.
He looked back at Finn with a grin, but his face quickly fell as he saw his friend's expression. He'd never seen so many emotions displayed on Finn's face at once, so much fear and anguish battling against utter confusion.
What? What is it?
Logan straightened again as Finn's fear infected him, his arms and legs becoming restless.
Finn, what is it?
Finn opened his mouth, but no words tumbled out. His wide-open eyes were fixed on the scene in front of them. Logan turned around again, his eyes scanning the inner court, but nothing seemed out of place to him.
I don't know what you're seeing, Finn. Is it the chair? Is it Silac? Did someone else show up? What?
Why is she here?
What? Who? Who is here?
She shouldn't be here. There's no reason for her presence here. In Baidan, there's nothing here for her. Why would she form an alliance with him? Logan's gaze fell on a woman who was accompanying Viscount Silac. His eyes only lingered on her because she reminded him of someone, and a second later it hit him that she reminded him of Finn. Logan whirled around to stare at Finn again, his eyebrows drawn together in confusion, before his eyes darted back to the woman. The hair was the same shade of blonde, although hers was slightly longer, ending just below her chin. They had the same slender frame, the same square shoulders, and Logan was sure if he could have looked her in the eyes, Hers would have been the same light shade as Finn's.
Are you talking about her? The one walking next to the chair? Do you know her? She looks like you. Is she family? Finn, for the love of the stars, could you answer at least one of my questions?
My sister.
Your what? What do you mean, your sister?
What is there not to understand? My sister. My parents' other child.
You have a sister?
Yes. Why are you so astonished?
You never mentioned her before.
Why would I have mentioned her? How would it have advanced our research?
I don't know.
You never mentioned any siblings either.
Well, I have a brother, but that doesn't matter now. Why are you terrified of your sister?
She's a terrifying person.
Care to elaborate?
Not really.
Sure, yeah, whatever. Be terrified on your own. Why is she here?
I don't know. She shouldn't be here.
Okay. I guess it's time to find out then.
Absolutely not.
What's one more mystery when we've already got 50 of them to solve? Aren't you curious? Maybe she's here for you. Or to form a super secret alliance with Socket. Shouldn't we find these things out before they come back to bite us in the ass?
Logan!
Alright. I'll not go talk to your sister. I'm sure she's only half as beautiful as you anyway.
She's only half as nice as me, that's for sure.
Who would have thought that could be possible?
Logan looked back out over the balcony, leaning on the cold stone again. The Viscount had long crossed the court with his moving chair, and the crowd had flocked back together into their clumps, chatting away at whichever new rumors this entrance had just created. Logan glanced back at Finn. His jaw and shoulders were set tight, but his hands were incessantly opening and closing, a habit Logan had already noticed earlier that only appeared when Finn seemingly wasn't in full control of the situation.
Do you want us to leave?
I think that might be the best. I don't particularly want to find out what she'd say if she finds me here. I apologize that we have to cut our exploration short.
Nah, don't worry about it. We came here to solve problems, not create new ones.
Next episode, we'll turn our attention back to Rena and the rest of the group, and we'll get back to the voting system. I apologize again that there's been such big gaps between episodes, but we should be able to get back to a more regular schedule in the near future. If you like this podcast, consider leaving a review or supporting it on Ko-fi or Patreon. You can also get the novelization of the first season as an ebook and paperback from most major retailers. You can find transcripts for each episode, character art, and a map of the kingdom on thehardpire.com. The intro music is Lonely Dusty Trail by John Prestone. The Hardpire is written and produced by me, Audrey Marta. Thank you for listening.